photo. So yeah, thank you, Peace and Katie, for sending me my amazing Women Changing the World shirt.
And I'm twinning today. I've got mine on as well. Yay! Okay, and I'll just press record. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce our next presenter. Her name is Kathy Rhodes. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Hello, Peace. And I am absolutely beyond delighted and excited to be here today and part of this community. Thank you so much for having me along.
Thanks, Kathy. And for people who haven't met you before, would you be able to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about what you do.
Yes, I wear so many different hats. And my favorite of those is, of course, the wannabe Peace and Katie's third sister. I am so many things. I'm an award judge for the B&T Awards, and as part of the Osmompreneur community, I am a business and marketing strategist that's had, 20 plus years of experience across all ATO tax categories and all different types of businesses, from startup to those that are on the ASX and kicking financial goals that are incredible. And right now what I do is I run a business called Thought Alchemists, which is dedicated to applying all of the experience I've gained over the years to individuals with messages that really matter. So thought leaders, ideapreneurs, people wanting to make a difference. And so it was so easy for me to say yes to be part of this program, because it aligns 100% to my purpose in life, which is to bring out the gold in ideas and people.
Beautiful. Well, I'll hand over to you now, but we will have time for questions at the end, possibly. So if you have questions for Kathy, please jot them down as we go, and we'll do questions after.
Amazing. All right, let me share my screen and hit play. And share that. Hit play. I'll get Peace to give me a nod to make sure everything is right. Okay, brilliant. So I am Kathy, and you can see here 3 different photos. The first one, the big one in the middle, is hanging out with a beautiful woman called Rebecca, and she won the startup pitch night on the International Women's Day a couple of years ago. There's me in the corner presenting to a group of people in Victoria, and there's me as an awards judge a couple of years ago at the B&T Awards. You probably have never heard my name, and that's absolutely okay, because I shine in the background. I'm the person that's back of house, pushing other people, or pushing other people's ideas and pushing other people's businesses forward and into the limelight. Now, when I was thinking about what could I say today that would be the greatest contribution to anyone in business looking to change the world, or anyone looking to change the world in their personal life, is to really reflect on, across all those different areas, what are the questions that come up most of the time, and how would I answer them? So often it's the case, people come to me and they go, Kathy, whether that's a CEO, whether that's someone dreaming about a business, whether that's a mum in business or someone entirely differently, and they always say this, Kathy, I need a brochure, a video, a Facebook payment, an event, a podcast, an app. You don't. And it's so surprising for people when I say this, when they come to me and they say, I need to run a Facebook Live, or I want to be into podcasting. And I say, well, you might, but you don't need that right now. Actually, what you need is to answer a few questions before we decide if that's right. You see, as a marketer, what I'm really interested in is making sure that people get commercial outcomes, making sure that as you change the world, you're changing it deliberately and directly and with purpose, rather than being scattered and going with the flow, although there's so much space in our lives for that. I really want to be clear around where you're going. And so today, what I want to say is, regardless of how you're changing the world, there's a process that I would love to share with you that will allow that to be even more possible. So today's presentation fits squarely in the marketing strategy space. I'm going to talk about 4 things: results, how to get them; audience, who you should be marketing to or speaking to, regardless of the type of business you're in, whether you've got a product-based business, whether you're a service provider, whether you're selling to other mums, whether you're selling overseas. We're going to talk about your audience. We're going to talk about your message, so what you should be saying in order to change people's behavior and get them to ultimately give you the results that you're looking for. And lastly, which way you should be in touch with all of them. Okay, so let's get started. This is the ugliest slide in my pack today. It's a picture of this RAM. And the reason I've put this RAM picture in here is because that's the acronym RAM, RAM, that I want you to take away today. It will allow you to apply this strategic framework to any of your business challenges, to any of your personal intentions in the world. So the first thing here is R for RAM, R for results. What are you looking to achieve? Now, Peace and Katie have heard me talk about this so many times, they're probably sick of me saying it, but I come back to it time and time again because of how true it is and how important it is that everyone understands and thinks this way each and every day. So there are only ever 4 ways to increase your revenue in a business, regardless of whether it's day one in the job or whether you've been in business for 10 years. And they are these things. 1 is to get more customers, right? That you increase your revenue by having more customers. 2 is you get your customers to pay more. 3 is to get your customers to buy more stuff. And lastly, to get your customers to buy more often. So allow me to explain this framework as it relates to a Coles supermarket. Okay, so the first one here, this get more customers, is the equivalent of saying, we want to switch people from Woolies, from Aldi, from Harris Farm, and we want them to come into Coles. So all the people that need to buy groceries on a Sunday afternoon, instead of them turning left to the green business and the green sign, we want them to come and turn right and head into Coles with the red sign. That's what I mean by getting more customers. You're increasing the size of your pie. The second one that I brought up on screen was get customers to pay more. So that, again, if we think about the Coles analogy, not only have we got them to step into the supermarket, but instead of buying the home brand item, I'm actually going to get them to buy the premium item. So they're going to pay more for that trolley full or that basket full of groceries because they've made a choice to spend more per item. That's what I mean by get customers to pay more. The third bucket here is get customers to buy more stuff. And so again, if we think about Coles and you're in the supermarket, you've put not only the pavlova in your basket because it's almost Christmas time, but you're then adding the cherries, you're adding the strawberries, you're adding the syrup, you're adding all of those things to make the dish whole. So rather than going to buy those extra things elsewhere or not buy them at all, getting customers to buy more stuff, think about it as filling the trolley up. The last one here, this fourth one, is to get customers to buy more often. So this is all about frequency. So what I mean by that is instead of going to Coles once a week, is there a particular special? Is there a particular way that we can attract people in the store more often? Because if we know they're in the store more often, they're more likely to buy from us. Now, if we apply this same thing very quickly to an e-commerce business, getting more customers would be making sure that people know that you exist. Getting people to pay more is about your pricing strategy. If we want to get people to buy more stuff, it's all about the cross-sell and the upsell opportunities where you're getting people to put more in their cart and you're breeding a loyalty so that people buy from you more often. So even though marketing strategy can be and business strategy can be really complicated, the first thing to know is there are only ever 4 ways to make money. All right, so this is a workshop and I'll just pause for a moment for those of you who are either watching live or are watching this after the fact. It's your turn to think about what is it that's going to make the biggest difference in your business or in the way that you intend to change the world. Do you want to get or need more customers to pay more? Do you need more of them altogether? Do you need them to buy more from you? Or do you need customers to buy more often? Think about which of those 4 is actually the most important for your business. Or do you need all of them? Because each requires a very different strategy. Okay, assuming you've done that and people can pause if they're watching this later, I will move on. Once you've decided which bucket is really important or which way you're going to grow your business and your revenue or change your impact, the next thing that I encourage everyone to do is to frame up their results using this particular formula. It's verb X to Y by when. I'll show you an example. So let's increase. So there's the verb. It's an action word. Increase, decrease, eradicate, uplift, whatever you want to do. It's important to start with a verb. So we're going to increase online sales from $1,000 per month to $3,000 per month by October 2019. Right? That's an example of an X to Y by when. Here's why this is important. It's important because once we articulate it in this way, we know the job that needs to be done. And more importantly, what we can do is we can come to October 2019 and we can say, did we make it or not? Open the champagne bottle or not, right? It's very clear. Because of what we've put in here as variables, it then has inherent implications, business and marketing strategy wise, for the resources we need to apply to it. So if I said 1K to 3K per month, right, all of a sudden we need to break that down and we say, okay, well, over the course of 4 weeks, that's an extra $2,000, which is an extra per week, which is an extra per day. And it allows you to be clear and careful around the way that you spend your time and your resources. And it also helps you to understand if it's achievable and to enroll your entire team, all of your suppliers, your VAs, any of your mentors. By being as clear and as precise as this, it will help everyone to understand if the next decision you make is the right one or the wrong one. It won't surprise you to say that if this example had been, I want to increase from online sales from 1K a month to $50,000 per month, okay, we're going to need a different investment. We're going to need to reach out to different people. We're going to need to do something differently. How achievable, how obtainable, how much stretch is in that automatically then has implications for the way things are done. I hope that that's been explained clearly. If I haven't, or if you've got any questions or there's something that you'd like to understand more about and we don't get an opportunity to do so, my door, like Kathy's door, as she said before, the other Kathy, is always open, and it would be my absolute pleasure and delight to answer anyone's questions and to help them apply this framework to their business. So again, it's a workshop style, so I'll pause for just a moment. Verb X to Y by when, take a photo of this screen, do it now, do it later. The point is, the clearer you are on the direction you're taking, the clearer you are around the result that you're looking for, the more easily you'll be able to obtain it. All right, so that's R. That's R for RAM. It's the first letter in our acronym. Next one is audience. Who are you talking to? So one of the things that's come up over the last 20 years for me is this intention or this desire to talk to as many people as possible. And people get so excited about, oh, there's 5,000 financial advisors, or there's 26,000 cafes in my local area, or whatever it happens to be. The way to reframe that is how few, not how many, customers do we need? And I'll explain what I'm talking about. So the first thing I always want to do is to understand who really is possible. How big or how sized is our audience? So the first one here is the total market, which is people that have all the needs that we're looking to address. And let's pretend for a moment that I'm consulting to you and you're a recruitment firm and your recruitment is an e-platform. Right? So people apply rather than going in and meeting a traditional HR recruiter, they're actually applying online, and that's a digital exchange. Okay. So the first thing we say, what's the total market? Well, we'd say that 6.25 million Aussies want a new job at any given time. Right? We know that from the research that exists. Then we say, well, okay, of all of those, what's our total addressable market? And that's a fancy way of saying have or would consider us. So we'd say, right, okay, so of everyone, based on the fact that there are people in particular industries, there are particular geographical locations, there are people that have particular preferences and comfort levels with face-to-face recruiters, we might estimate that actually, you know what, around about half are interested or able to consider us because they've had a good experience in the past, or they're digitally minded and are open to that. Then we talk about the total available market. So they are the people that are looking for our solution right now. And we've said here in this illustration that 750K might be actively looking for a job. So we've got the total market, the number of Aussies that could ever possibly potentially need a job. We've got the addressable market, so those ones that would actually consider us. The total market available is the ones that are looking up for us right now. And then the last thing, which most people don't consider, and it applies differently to different industries, is what I call the obtainable market. And the obtainable market is that those people that would be appropriate. And it's those people that would be appropriate that I'd love you to spend your most time thinking about as part of today's session. So if I, again, use that recruitment example, it might be that actually, even though 750,000 people are available, actually, you know what, some have the wrong visas, some are going to drop out, some of them, you don't have the jobs to fit them on the other side of the equation. So we might reduce that further and say, actually, there's only 600,000 people that are appropriate. Now, in your examples for your businesses, these funnels are also applicable, but the numbers are likely to be much less. I've used a totally verbose example by way of illustration. What we want to do is to get really clear on how few rather than how many customers we need. I remember being engaged in a project a few years ago where they came to me, they came to us, and they were like, oh, I'm really interested in doing a Kickstarter campaign because I want to sell an organic style of coffee with reusable instead of an espresso pods. And so instead of going by and trying to do a Kickstarter campaign where they're trying to talk to everyone and get everyone to give them, you know, $10 or $20 or $30, we actually said, you know what, if you were able to then get 12 corporate clients, each of whom had 100 or 200 staff willing to have their coffee in this style every day, then not only will you have exceeded the fundraising that you intended to do through Kickstarter, but you're well on the way to product fit, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than thinking about all the people who could possibly need, it's how many do you actually need? How few do you need in order to take the next step, in order to unlock that resource allocation so you can bring on a new staff member, to be able to afford that holiday that you want, to be able to, from a philanthropic perspective, be able to give back. So never think about how many, think about how few. That would be the second piece of advice that I'd provide you today. Okay, once we've done that and we're thinking about the people we really want, and you may have seen these before, it's called a persona. For the purpose of today, I've called it your inspirational design target. It's asking these questions. What is it that your ideal person sees? What is the market currently offering? What do they see in their environment? Are they going to work and noticing billboards? Are they seeing something happen by way of conversation around them? What are they watching? What are they seeing? What are they saying and doing? So what's their appearance? What's their attitude, their behaviors towards others? Pain. What are their fears and frustrations? What are their obstacles? And I always like to ask this question, not only about the individual, but I love to cross-check this against my product and my services. So what are they really fearful of when it comes to engaging a consultant? What are they really fearful of if they're ordering online swimwear? Well, it might be that the sizing isn't right. They might be fearful that the quality is not great. They might be fearful that they get it and it exposes them in ways they weren't expecting. It's really important for us to understand the typical fears and concerns that someone might have about engaging with us or engaging in our category of services, so that we can put those fears to rest. We can take deliberate steps to be like, if you're worried about our returns policy, there's no need. You've got 45 days or whatever is true for your business. But answering questions that you know will be in your customers' minds is a really great way to make sure that your product's easier to buy, that your services are more readily acceptable. The next question I always ask is around hearing. So what do her or his friends say? Who are influencing them, and influencing them at multiple levels? So who are the unseen decision makers in any given organization or in any given sales transaction? It might be their children. It might be their spouse. It might be their boss at work. It might be their team. There's always multiple people involved in any given decision that are influencing in the background. Who are they when it relates to your ideal customer? The other one here is around thinking and feeling. So what are their preoccupations, or what are their things which are aspirational? How are they actually planning to show up in the world? How does your product fit into that ecosystem, and what makes your product the right fit in order to do just that? And then the last thing, which is the opposite of pain, is gain. So what are they desiring deeply from working with you? And it's not just an outcome. I want you to think about the feelings, right? So if someone's desiring to work with you and all of a sudden their mindset is shifted and they're able to step into an opportunity that they would never have otherwise done before, there's a feeling that gets conjured around that. There's a promise that needs to be delivered. So these 6 questions. So what is your ideal customer, so the fewest number, not the biggest number, what are they seeing around them? What's part of their visual world, right? What are they reading? What are they consuming? What do they say and what do they do? What are their attitudes and beliefs around you, around your experience, your credibility, your product in market? What are their thoughts around the category? If I said to you, I'm going to go and buy a used car and I'm going to walk into a used car sales environment, you might instantly have feelings and attitudes about that conjured and that have come to be as a direct relationship to your experience in the past. We want to understand those. The next thing around fear and frustration and obstacles, right? If someone's really scared or the obstacle is timing, can we design our product in a way that's flexible? If they're terrified that things won't arrive before Christmas, what are we doing to solve that then? Each of these questions will provide answers to your business and how you ultimately, going back to those 4 buckets, get more of them, get them to pay more, get them to come more often, and get them to spend more money with you. So your turn would be, do you know your total market size? How few people do you need to reach in order to change the world in your intended way in 2022? If you don't know that yet, my recommendation is that you invest the time to have a crack at it. Even if it's a hypothesis, even if it's a back of an envelope exercise rather than informed by real data, of course, I'm a real data fan, at least spending the time knowing how many people you actually need to go after will have massive implications for how you spend your time and money generating sales within your business. And then what's your ideal persona or your inspirational design target? Get to know them and understand them intimately. Firstly, again, back of the envelope style, sit down, write it all out. And then ideally you would go and test it and be like, hey, I think you're probably worried about this. And they'll say, yes, absolutely correct. I'm worried about that. Or no, you know what? That's actually not concerning for me. That might have been a few years ago. Here's what I'm actually thinking and feeling at the moment. The more we understand our customers, the more we're better able to serve them and to provide things that really make a difference in their world. Okay, so again, because it's a workshop style, that's your exercise if you're planning to do that now or if you plan to watch and do that later. All right, moving on. So we talked about RAM, we've done R for results, we've done A for audience. The next thing I want to share with you is all about message. And it's, what does your audience need to hear? Now, bear with me. If I'd come on today and said, hi, I'm Kathy and I'm 76 years of age, right? The first question you probably would ask be like, damn girl, who's supplying your face cream, right? I'm obviously not 76 years of age. But what happens all the time is in business, people tell me things and have things visible in their communications that may be important to them, but not to the customer. So the equivalent of saying I'm 76 years old is that opening line you see on so many, particularly services businesses. We've been around since 1942. Who cares? I don't care how long you've been around. I'm glad for you. I'm glad that you've been running a successful business, but I'm most interested or more interested in what all of those years of experience makes possible for me. Or how come all of those members that have participated in your program before, what do they think and how am I going to be able to leverage all of that existing experience? I call it this, that it's not what you want to say about yourself, it's what your audience needs to hear. And I've already given you the answer to this. It comes back to that persona or that ideal customer target. They need to be reassured and excited based on the things that they're feeling, knowing, experiencing, and believing. Not what you want to say about yourself, it's what your audience needs to hear. Now, the answers are in the questions I've asked earlier around personas, but what do you do with them, right? Well, there's a really, really amazing way that I tackle all communications challenges that I have, and it's this, the rule of 3. I'm calling it FBI, feature, benefit, and implication. So the feature is a fact or a stat about your business or about your products or about your intentions. So if let's take, for example, Kennard's self-storage as a business. So a feature of that storage business would be the size of the boxes, would be the payment terms, would be their geographical locations. All of these individual facts are what I would describe as features of that business. Now, if we just take one of them, the feature, which is opening hours, and we say, okay, the feature is that it's open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Okay, that's very clear. It's precise. I'm not using jargon, and there's a number in it, which makes it a great feature. It's defensible in a court, right? Like it's very, very clear. As it relates to a service-based business, the feature might be training someone's done. It might be accreditation someone's achieved. It might be awards that have been issued, etc. You want to be really clear on what the fact is around that particular business. The magic comes in the next two steps. Benefit is basically asking, well, why is that good? Why have you bothered to include that feature? Why have you bothered to incorporate that as part of your product design? So again, if I go back to that Kennard self-storage example, the feature is opening hours, which we're open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Why is that good? The benefit is that you can get your stuff whenever you want to. Right? That's the benefit. That's why they've chosen to do that. That's why it's important for me as a customer deciding between it and say a metro storage, or it in terms of putting things in my attic, or it versus something else. Now, the implication is the step that the most professional marketers and the professional communicators go to. Most people skip this one. And the implication is, well, what becomes possible, particularly emotionally, as a consequence of that feature and that benefit? Kennard self-storage example, let me explain. Open 24 hours, 7 days a week feature. Benefit is you can get your stuff whenever you want. The implication is that you can have the messiest house. You can have the most fulfilling collection of anything, and you can not worry about it having an impact on your home life, right? Or you could live in the city and you could have that dream life, but you could also then still have something in the background. It becomes a duality of life that's possible. And it's the duality of that life. And it's the, get the spouse off your back because you can have your messy stuff elsewhere, or people don't need to see, when they walk into your house, your bikes and all the cluttered things. Any and all of those implications are where we really focus our marketing communication. So we want to delight people by speaking up here, right? You know what? You never need to worry about your husband coming home and having muddy footprints and tire marks in the hallway ever again. Why? Because we have storage which is accessible 24/7, which means that when you're still asleep on a Sunday morning, he can be up and about and out of your hair, and you never have to worry about it. So communicating at all of those three levels are really important if we're going to get people to buy into what we're selling emotionally, as well as feeling justified and rational about that decision. I hope I've explained that clearly. Again, if I haven't, please ask questions at the end or reach out for clarification. All right, so if I've said FBI, I would, again, from a workshop perspective, encourage you at this point to not only take a photograph of that, but also have a go at it. So rather than saying you can trust me, why can I trust you? I can trust you because you've got 35 years worth of experience with these particular clients. I can trust you because my SLA is that I'll get back to you in 24 hours, that our returns policy is more generous than anyone else's, that we're based in a particular location, and if you want to come and have an inspection, we'll offer that. So rather than saying you can trust us, or high quality, or any of these generic motherhood statements that we see time and time again, I want you to prove it to me. And I want you to prove it to me by listing all your features, then working out why you've bothered to include those or why they're important. And then how does my life change as a consequence? Doing these three things in every social media post, in every time you send out a client newsletter, in every time you add a new product description online, or you're putting a pitch deck in front of a buyer, your world will change because you'll be thinking about it in their terms, not in the things that you want to say about yourself. Really, really important. All right, we're up to the last M. So results, audience, message, and now medium. The message I've got for you here is this: turn up where your customers are. I know that sounds really simple, and hopefully everything I'm saying today is both simple and straightforward and makes a lot of sense. And really what I'm talking about when I say this is that you don't have to have any particular social media account or do any particular marketing activity just because it's popular, just because everyone else is doing it. If your customers don't hang out on Facebook, don't worry about it. If your customers are on Facebook, yes, worry about it. If your customers use Pinterest, go for it. If they don't. One of the things that people feel, particularly when they're starting out in business, is this overwhelm that they need to do it all because they've seen other people do it all. Actually, it's just not true. You only ever need to be where your customers are. Now, my favorite examples of where customers are the unexpected places. So once upon a time, I worked for a client, and their policy within that industry was that you couldn't send gifts. Right. So to get someone's attention, we couldn't send anything in the mail. We couldn't send them expensive gifts. We couldn't invite them hospitality. We couldn't get this B2B relationship because the industry had put a blanket rule on top of it that said any gifting is considered to be bribery, right? Regardless of the intention behind it. Fair enough. Great rule. But as a marketer, that obviously provides a challenge. How do we get in front of them? So what we did is we sent empty boxes. The dog's just because it's cute. I'm hoping everyone's smiling on the other side of this presentation right now. We sent empty boxes with, we'd love to gift you. We know the rules, but we'd love to talk to you all the same, right? There's no gift in here because we can't, but do you want to have a chat? And that is showing up where our customers are. It's taking simple ideas, it's taking simple real estate, and it's applying it in a way that's creative. So I'm not going to go out and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on any particular digital campaign if I can send a $15 empty box, including postage, to the 5 key decision makers that are going to really matter in that ecosystem. Now, does that strategy work for everyone? Of course not, right? There only might be one person on this call that would write that down as an executional idea. And the reason for that is because rather than thinking about it as being everyone should do everything, or I need to be here because someone else is, it's actually, there's only 5 people that really matter. Get in touch with them and do that in a creative way. Another example of that is the Palau project. It's one of my Palau projects, one of my favorite campaigns. I've got so much respect for it. I wasn't involved in it, but I could talk about it forever. And that is this. There's an island nation called Palau. And what they noticed was that tourists were coming and they were trashing it. They were trashing their precious beaches. They were, just disrespecting the land. And so rather than try and do anything else, right, of which all the other options were decided, their marketing and strategy team came up with this idea that to introduce the Palau Pledge. So every time someone came in addition to getting their official visa, they would get a stamp in their passport. And it was this beautiful long text that says, I promise to look after the nation of Palau for the people that come next. And tourists were actively asked to physically sign this in their passport as a promise that they would take respect of the island nation. Now, because they're showing up where your customers are and being visible in ways that make sense to the customers rather than billboards or anything else, that's what's made a difference. And that program basically has all but eliminated the need for a clean after tourist leave, because people are taking it really seriously. It's so clever. The same cleverness appears with the Fearless Girl, if you've seen her bronze statue in Wall Street. That campaign came about by an insurance company who wanted to get the attention of women in the industry, that wanted to say they're going to support them. Now, instead of doing white papers, instead of doing a spray and pray approach or turning up in the traditional ways, they installed the bronze statue. Now, talk about talkability. One-off, impressive, like so much so that we know that it's stuck around, and it was supposed to be just a few weeks as an install, and it is now there for all people to enjoy. It's become something really impressive because they've taken the time to go, well, what's the result we're looking for? Who and where are our audiences? And what's going to make a difference to get them to pay attention? It'll be different for every one of your businesses. Workshop style, 2 things. 1, where is your audience? Really take the time to work that out. And do you have their permission to show up in expected and unexpected ways? So don't go all creepy, of course. You're not invading anyone's medical information or privacy details, but it is really important that you take the time to think about what it is that they need in order to feel like they know, like, and trust you. All right, let's recap, and then I'll go to questions. I can see that there are 6 things in the chat, but I can't see what they are just yet. I will get to them, I promise. Okay, recap. Results. 4 ways to grow X by Y by when. Pay more, buy more, testing me, pay more, buy more, spend more, and get more customers. They're the 4 ways. Framed X to Y by when, you'll be really clear. It'll be very easy to hold everyone in your team, everyone you work with, any of your volunteers, any of your committees, or any of your suppliers into account. This is what we're doing today. This is what we're doing over the next 6 months, and that will have implications for everything you do. Size your audience correctly, create an empathy map to understand them, and work out how few, not how many you need. That will change the game for you forever. Messaging wise, it's never about you. It's always about them. What is it that they need to hear in order to say yes, sign up, tick that box? By alleviating fears and painting a picture about how your product solves problems and shows up in their life in a beneficiary way is the answer to that question. And then lastly, it's overly simplistic, but it's so, so important. And that's turn up where your customers are. If you do that, all of a sudden you won't need to spread your marketing dollars this wide. You can concentrate on the channels that really make a massive difference and turn those dollars on. I love reading. Anyone who knows me will know that I love reading, which again, of course, I'm voraciously reading all of Peace and Katie's books. I mean, I literally have the last one here in my hands, and I can't wait for the copy of The Women Changing the World. If you're interested in any of the strategies I've discussed, they come from many places, including these. So again, feel free to take a photo or pause on this point, some really interesting, wonderful reading that you can access there. And that's me. I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to share a little bit about what I know in service of others to make sure that you can all change the world, because let's do that.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was amazing, amazing, amazing. And so the best way for people to get in touch with you is to reach you through LinkedIn?
Yes, that would be amazing. They can do that.
Just do a search for Kathy Rhodes, or else, of course, your website, thoughtalchemist.com.
Yeah, of course. And if you can see the QR code, if you hold your phone up to the QR code, all of my details will be available to you and you'll be able to save those to your phone instantly. Should pop up.
Cool.
Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any questions, but I will invite them just in case.
Yeah, I'd like to open the floor for questions. If you have a question for Kathy, you can either raise your hand or else just unmute, turn your camera on and jump in and say hi. In fact, I'd love to invite people to just say hello if you don't have a specific question.
Say hello.
Hey, hello, Mim. Hey.
I'm heading out soon, but I really wanted to just come in and say thank you so much, Kathy. I found every second of that so inspiring and I just loved it. I loved it so much. Like, so many good things came up and I had my phone up taking like screenshots on my phone. And I just have so much inspiration to have a bit of a deeper dive into my business as well for next year. So it couldn't have come at a better time and I really enjoyed it.
Amazing. My absolute pleasure, Mim. My pleasure.
Who else wants to say hi? Kathy DeMarcos. Hi.
I see in the chat that you've been to Palau, Kathy, and you worked on it. Tell us more about your experience being there and signing that pledge.
So it's actually interesting. It wasn't just Palau where that actually happened, but Palau is just one of those islands where it's just so magical. But that actual rubbish, that dumping that actually, happened over, it was years, was phenomenal. And they closed the island. I can't even remember how long it was actually closed for. But it was catastrophic. We have got no idea. We talk about the rubbish on our actual beaches. It was nothing. We can't even compare. It is just a magical place, Kath. I mean, I love the Philippines. I love the people that are actually there. But the fact that the government actually took such an initiative was phenomenal, to actually close the place down and actually look at it long term. I take my hat off to them.
Yeah, yes. Amazing. Well, thank you for that share. As I said, I'm so impressed by that campaign. It really delights me in terms of what they intended to do and how they went about it. So I love to use that as an example.
Yeah, beautiful. And thank you for your presentation.
My pleasure.
Marketing is, I always say to people, I work in my place of genius, and I actually put my hand up and go, I can do marketing, but that's not my place of genius. So I take away tips, from geniuses like you that sit in that space all the time. So thank you.
Oh, you're very, very welcome.
Thanks, Kathy. Any other questions? Anyone else want to jump in and say hello?
Well, Vanessa and Ainsley, I've met your beautiful faces before. If you wanted to jump in and throw me an actual business challenge, we can use the system live to see if it works if you like.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was actually just in the middle of having a late breakfast.
That's all right.
But that was such an awesome talk. I missed the start of it, so I'm going to catch up on YouTube later because, yeah, very informative.
You're very welcome. And I can't wait to read your chapter in particular.
Yeah, same. I remember, like, through the process, being able to read somebody else's chapter just as we're swapping to make sure that, you know, they're all good. And that particular one alone was fantastic. So I can't wait to read the others.
Yeah, amazing.
Yay, I'll jump in and say hello.
Hi, Katie.
I feel like some of those examples may have been about me wanting to have apps and all of the things. I do get a little bit excited. But yeah, not a question, but I just loved what you were saying. And it's so true about just keeping things simple, remembering where your people are, instead of trying to be everywhere all at once. And I loved when you were talking about the benefits, because I think it's so easy to talk about what you get. But yes, breaking that down is something that I need to definitely work on more.
Yeah. So the people that do this particularly well, like the real champions of this, no surprises, are Apple, right? So the feature is, you know, how many megahertz or some really cool geek talk that I'm not familiar with, right? But Steve Jobs came out and said your whole music collection in your pocket, right? Or the Dyson vacuum cleaners, that got a 2000 watt motor. Okay, great. You've obviously chosen to put that in your product, but why is it important? Okay, well, that particular motor, the benefit of that is that it gets more dust, and therefore asthmatics are better off in that particular house with that particular carpet. But then the implication is, well, how does that even make my life even better as I can clean my house in half the time? Right. And so understanding that and getting away from the technical, getting away from the jargon, not because there's not a place for it, but because you need to understand why it matters. Right. So it's a case of, I'm going to deliver for you free wrapping paper. Right. You've chosen to do that. Well, why have you chosen to that? Okay, well, the implication is they arrived and be gifted, and you don't have to worry about spending, you know, Christmas Eve under the tree. There's just so many things that we do, and we know that they're valuable, but what we don't bother to do is to communicate their value. We step over them and expect people to understand. And really, we're all looking for explanations. The most important word in marketing is because. You should work with Peace and Katie because. You should sign up to Vanessa's amazing business because. You should engage Kathy to work with you around all the wonderful things she does because. And the more becauses we can have, the stronger our argument and the more compelling we are in terms of the proposition we have in market.
Yeah, I think the other problem I know that I feel often, and I hear from others as well, is that the amount of times you have to explain that, because I feel like I'm, you know, spamming everyone and annoying my people, but then I know, so then I speak to them and they're like, no, I didn't even know that you did that. So yeah, I'm sure you have some stats around how many times people have to hear that kind of messaging.
So a few years ago it used to be 12. These days it's 21 times. And the example I love to use around this is often it sounds really silly, but I promise you this is an actual example where the brand team at ANZ would often get asked by people saying, oh, I'm sick of the blue, you know, it's Christmas time. Can we throw a green? But no, just because you've seen it all the time, there's no way, right? Showing up consistently and walking past and catching a blue ATM out of your eye is cornerstone, right? And you wouldn't want to change that. So you do have to repeat messages, because the research says that we get over 10,000 a day. And when you think about that, it makes a lot of sense, right? So think the moment you wake up, there's branding on your pajamas, most likely. There's branding on your toothpaste. There's branding on the toothbrush that you use, your breakfast cereal or the bread packet. Like, you haven't even gone half an hour into your day and you're already experiencing in your periphery so many messages and so many brands, let alone by the time you complete a day or you've surfed online or you've picked up and you've scrolled through Facebook. So it's really important that we show up consistently, and we don't get worried about annoying people, because as long as there's utility or value in what we're doing, people won't be turned off. They'll be delighted for the reminder and think of you at the right time.
It's so interesting that consistency is so needed. And the whole branding, the psychology, and keeping that going is really important. And I see business owners wanting to rebrand and change their name and do different things, but actually you have to be careful because people will lose you. They'll forget what your name is if you change your name too many times. So that's really important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the mistakes people make is overestimating their enthusiasm and interest in any particular marketing channel. So, for example, if you're going to start a blog or you're going to start a podcast, make sure if you commit to having a new episode every Wednesday, that you can do that every Wednesday. There's no point stopping and starting. And I think people do that with their client newsletters. They do that with their social media. And it's okay to only appear once a day or once a week or once a month, right? Whatever the cadence is that you can actually maintain, it's better to do that and be consistent and reliable around it than it is to chop and change and go up and down. So the opposite of that, the worst case scenario would be we're going to have an episode every week. And then 3 months in, it's like, oh, that's such hard work. Let's have an episode every 2 weeks. Oh, that's hard. Let's have an episode every month. You would have been better off from the beginning doing one a month and being really consistent around it.
Absolutely. Do we have any more questions? Vanessa, did you want to say hi? Vanessa Marima?
Hi. Sorry, I was being rude and multitasking over here while trying to get everything done. But great to see you again, Kathy. It was really valuable what you shared, and definitely was listening in when I could. That's great.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I know that you and I speak from the same song sheet often, Vanessa, as it relates particularly to the way that thought leaders need to show up in terms of consistency of message and really being on the right channels. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Vanessa often takes the strategy that's prepared on this end and makes it completely possible for wonderful humans like Amy Telekabaz. So
yes,
you do exceptional work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another thing that I loved that you spoke about, Kathy, was that we don't have to be across all of the platforms. I think it can be so overwhelming trying to maintain social media, across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and everything. And what I loved was when you said, know where your people are, and that's where you should be showing up. Correct. And that can change as well. I found that changes. When we first started our business, people were on Twitter and then not so much on Twitter, and now they're more on Instagram. So understanding where they are and it being okay that can change, I think is important too.
Yeah, I think it's okay that it changes. You need to understand, and if you're not constantly checking, and when I say constantly, I mean quarterly, then you really are missing an opportunity to show up and be noticed in the places that they are actually hanging out in. And the other ratio, if you like, I'm full of stats and figures, is I call it 20-1. And that's, you want to make 20 deposits for every one withdrawal in a community. So rather than being, come to my webinar, come to my webinar, come to my webinar, come to my webinar, which is an ask or a withdrawal, we want to show up 20 times, at least 20 times across any given time period to be like, this is helpful, 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 and come to my webinar. And that's because if we show up in service and we're generous, then that's what people really, really appreciate. And it will ultimately get you to where you need to go. But people who are constantly selling rather than people that are really genuinely trying to help and show where they fit in improving people's lives and changing the world, huge difference between those two types of business.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have time for one more question if anyone would like to say hello. And everybody's gone quiet on me.
I'm going to ask a question, a real practical one. Kath,
what
size is your t-shirt so that I know what size to order?
I've chosen the smallest one that was possible. Is that the extra small, Katie, or was it small? I can't remember.
I think it's an 8.
Yeah, the smallest one.
The 8.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
It does look good.
I think I'm a white person. I think I'm going to have to follow you, Kath.
Yeah, I love the white. I think the white just really pops.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thank you so much for presenting today, Kathy. It's been wonderful catching up with you again. And thank you for all of your wisdom and advice on such an important topic that all of us need to be across.
You're so welcome. Lots of love to you and everyone who's seeing this at any time.
Thank you.
Bye.
And I'm going to get things ready for our panel now. So stand by, everyone, and we'll get organised for our next session. Thanks, Kathy.